can you compare and contrast the terroir of Russian River Valley with the Sonoma Coast appellation?
Well, the Sonoma Coast appellation is so large. I mean, if the Russian River Valley is stretching it, the Sonoma Coast is broken it, quite unfortunately, as an official appellation. However, the way that I use the definition, if it's would be very close proximity to the ocean. And what I tell people is that if you could ride a bicycle to go fishing in the ocean without breaking too big of a sweat, chances are you're starting from Sonoma Coast Appellation Vineyard. In other words, that means you're probably up on the hill, coasting most of the way to the ocean rather than pedaling up over the hills to get to the ocean. That said, usually due to the elevation, in order to get the stuff ripe, you have less low nighttime temperatures than you would say in the Russian River Valley. And I suspect that there's, I'll back up a little bit, there's I think a similarity between the sassafras notes that I tend to see in Sonoma Coast wines more often than not, relative to the cola type notes that I see in the Russian River Valley wines. I think they're coming probably from a similar place. There's some overlap there, but the differences have to do more with perhaps nighttime temperatures, so that the cooler during the growing season and ripening part of the season, if the cooler the nighttime temperatures, the more you'll get those things to express themselves as big cola notes, as opposed to the sassafras notes with slightly higher nighttime temperatures, and that excludes anything about daytime temperatures.
You haven't talked anything about the different subsoils in that definition. Is there a big difference between soil on the Sonoma Coast and Russian River Valley?
There's huge differences every place. There tend to be less marked differences in the Russian River Valley because it tends to have more alluvial soils, which would be a little more homogeneous, as opposed to right on the coast where we've got the San Andreas Fault scumbling all these different soil types together. So I think there's more radical differences, the closer to the fault at least, which would tend to be more toward the encompassing the Sonoma Coast appellation wines, at least under my effective definition of Sonoma Coast wine.